This is season 2 of the Vinh and Ali podcast, and we thought this season would try something different. And this season we thought, instead of just doing what we did the last season, which was review the books we're currently reading, talking about them, exploring the lessons that exist within them, we thought this season we'd go for topics that are important to us and do a podcast on topics. And what's the first topic we've decided on, Ali?
Well, we've got about 35 to choose from.
It's got to be a long season.
It's going to be a long episode.
Yeah. No, we're only doing one topic per podcast.
Unless you want to join them all up. And
No, I don't want to do that. That's too confusing.
I think the first one, just because of what we're doing right now, right here, is we do recalibrate.
Yeah.
And I love this term. Like, I'm going to give you credit for this term of recalibrate.
Yeah.
What's it mean to you?
The reason I love the word recalibrate is because there's the analogy of the satellite. When the satellite gets shot into space and then it's going to get to its destination, it has to continuously recalibrate where it currently is and calibrate itself so that it gets back onto the track that it's meant to be on to get to the destination where it gets to. So like every moment, every second, there's a 0.2 degrees to the left, 0.3 degrees to the right. And I find that that's so amazing that a satellite readjusts itself every single minute. Whereas what about human beings? When's the last time you've recalibrated yourself to your current values that you have? And I realized this in 2016 when I was chasing my goals that I'd set when I was 18 years old, and I didn't stop for the last 8 years to recalibrate. So I was chasing stupid goals that I set when I was 18. You know, the stupid, I have to make $1 million. It's like, well, why do you have to make $1 million? So I found myself being guided by goals that were created by a previous version of me. And I found that was so dangerous because I think that's one of the main reasons why people reach destinations they don't want to actually go to. You know, and that to me is what recalibrate is. It's stopping and going, Vin, in 2021, what does he actually want? What does he actually care about? And where you're going, is that still where you want to go?
Love that.
Yeah.
There's that quote, that analogy where I think maybe it might be marine related, but if that GPS is off just by 1 degree.
That's a good point.
And you keep going for 1,000 kilometers, 1 degree off, rather than hitting Australia if that's your destination, you're probably going to jump into Antarctica, right?
Well, that's the same thing with golf, right?
Yeah.
You could hit the ball just another millimeter away and you're not on the green.
That's right. Yep, 1 microsecond. Like, because if the ball's going 200 meters, it's off by 1 or 2 degrees.
That's all it takes.
Rather than being right next to the flag stick, it can be on the highway in smashing someone's front windscreen.
Yeah.
So it's a great analogy for life. And I think because life's always ever changing, it doesn't take too many things to just take us off track slightly. So I love this notion of you recalibrating.
Well, I mean,
and wanting to do that.
To just move with that example a bit more, right? It's just like the simple thing of exercising. Like for me, last year, I was on a really good kind of exercising routine and habits. And then I fell off it for about 4 months because I had to do 4 weeks of quarantine because I moved from America back to Australia. And in the hotel and at home, I couldn't exercise properly. Just not doing that one habit put me on a completely different trajectory after that health-wise. Yep. Gaining weight, feeling sluggish, but it was just one thing that I stopped doing. Yep. So again, I think it speaks volumes to the just 1% shift and then dramatic destination difference.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of the things that I think is really important, one of the things that I'm really excited to explore is the unique way that we recalibrate.
Yeah. And
going through how we do it, why we do it, what we have to negotiate.
with our wives,
with our loved ones to be able to do this.
Yeah,
but I remember when we were driving here, we were chatting about it. Yeah, and we were saying that what we're doing right now is pretty unique. So just for a bit of context, right now, Vin and I, we're in Victor Harbour, South Australia. We had, I think originally the plan was to go to Queenstown, then was to go to Tasmania. Then we ended up here because this worked, and then even this nearly got derailed.
This almost got derailed because of bloody case in Victoria.
Yeah, COVID case in Victoria. But
that happened a day before we were about to come here.
Before we were doing it. So the recalibrate, but we're pretty committed to wanting to recalibrate. But the way that we're doing it right now is we've got an Airbnb, we've hired it out, there's a beautiful backdrop out here overlooking the coast. This is quite...
Well, there's the first point. The first point is that you require an environment change. You can't recalibrate at home with the kids screaming in the background and your everyday routines of life just, one room away. You have to change your environment. I think a dramatic change in environment first is the most important thing. But I mean, before we go into the how, I think what's important is, the why.
The why.
Like, why do you need to do it? Why do you need to recalibrate? I mean, we spoke a little bit about it. Otherwise, you end up somewhere you don't want to be. Right? That's the first thing. I'll add another one, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, because we've done this for quite a few years now. For me, another reason is because I find I either live an inspired life or I live a life where I just don't feel inspired. I feel flat. I feel demotivated. And to me, when I have clarity on what I want, that's when I feel the most inspired. I think a lot of the times when people are lacking inspiration, it's not that they have to go to a seminar and get pumped up. What they actually need is clarity. And there's a great quote, I can't remember who this was, but I think it was Steven Spielberg.
Give it to him. Give it to Steven.
Yeah, just give it to him. Yeah. I think he said that the you that speaks to you, when it does speak to you, it whispers. And what that just means is that you need quiet to be able to hear your own voice. And I think a lot of people, including myself and even you, is when we get caught up in the monotony of life at times and the busyness of life, we can't hear our own voice anymore. We hear the expectations from our partner, from our kids, from our work, from our community, from our families, and we lose track of our own voice. And then that's when clarity is gone. I don't know what I want anymore. Is what I'm doing because of something my wife wants me to do or my children want me to do, or am I doing it because I want to do it?
It becomes too surface level. Because when you're living the day-to-day and there's lots of reactionary inputs coming at you, it feels like you can only kind of stay in system one, which is do this move, answer this question, speak to this person, have this meeting. And you just hit on it so nicely. It's finding long periods of time and space. To me, it's the equivalent of if you're a runner, sprinting versus really settling into a marathon. Could be the analogy. Where when you're looking for that inner voice, because I really like that notion of the inner voice, where I think what you're trying to say there, it's listening to the deepest part of yourself. And how do you tap into that? And it's very hard to tap into that without things like the environment change, without maybe journaling for a long period of time, because you have to sit nearly in stillness and silence for a pretty long time, I find, to unlock that side. And it's interesting because it's one of those things when you're really busy, that the last thing that you think about is finding space and time for yourself to actually go and reset, which is usually what you need the most. It's like when if you're like meditating, you put off meditation the days that when you're the busiest and you've got heaps going on. It's like, oh, you know what? I'll meditate later. But the reality is your mind's so active. If the goal of meditation is to clear your mind, that's when you really, if I ever find myself saying that don't meditate, you're too busy, actually that's a signal saying that, well, you need to go meditate. And I think with recalibration nowadays, when things get a little bit chaotic or hectic, let's go find that time and space for recalibration.
And the scary thing that I realized, the first time I did this was in 2016. The scary thing that I realized was, well, it was scary and also it was shocking that my entire life up until I was about 27, I'd never spent 7 days by myself for myself. And it was such a weird realization.
You know why I'm laughing, right?
Why?
That a few weeks ago when I'm like, hey, Vin, just take the day and just go by yourself. Journal.
Ali told me to take 3-4 hours by myself, go to the beach and just journal and write. And I was like, yeah, cool, bro. And then I just took my brother out to lunch and we kind of had a great conversation together. Well, it's because I innately fear often time alone as well. I just do. But what I was saying was, what was crazy was the realization that I've never spent time for myself selfishly. And it is not that I'm Mother Teresa. It's just that I always feel bad. before I met you, I used to feel so bad. Like for me not to be here with Pei Wen, my wife, and Xander, my little baby boy, for me to be here without them, to me, that was the most selfish thing a husband and a father could do until you came along and said, no, Vin, you need you time. Right. And now I'm the worst father and worst husband of all time.
Just blame it. I take full responsibility.
Full responsibility. No, but the thing is, what was beautiful was, like, I showed you the message from Pei Wen, my wife, yesterday, where she was like, hey, you know, I just want you to just go, make sure, just don't feel guilty, because I know you're feeling guilty right now. And she was right. There's a bit of guilt. Yeah. And it's so amazing that now my family give me permission to be here.
To do that. Yeah.
Whereas for so long in my life, I just felt like this was the most selfish thing I could do. Which is interesting, because I think that's what stops most people. Because if you asked a dad or a mom to go, hey, take a week and just go off with yourself and someone and just recalibrate, they were like, not realistic. For that reason, I think.
For sure.
Guilt.
Well, there's discomfort on two sides. One is, I think a lot of us, we feel uncomfortable being by ourselves for a period of time. Like, say if I'm speaking to people that have young families, doing something like this might be the first time in 5 years that they've been away from their kids, that they've been away from their wife. So there's also this level of potentially homesickness or discomfort of, being away, the guilt about leaving your family behind, which is number one. The reason why I started making this a habit is it happened by accident, because 2012 to 2016, I had a job where I used to travel a lot, and this nearly got forced on me, because we would be traveling for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time. And there was two ways that you could go about that travel. One is you'd have your colleagues, you go out, dinners, drinking, visit the city. The other option was, after work's done, sit down. And I just started writing and thinking. And I remember getting stuck in Mauritius because there was a cyclone for 2 weeks. And this was game changing, because it was the first time that I was there by myself. I had no one to really hang out with.
No colleagues?
No colleagues.
Okay.
I think there was one other colleague there, but they were staying sort of on the different side of the resort. But we were pretty much told that you have to stay in your room for like 4 or 5 days, because this cyclone was insane.
Wow.
And that's where this started. And in that 4 or 5 days, I got to know myself probably better than I ever have. And I had all these notes and ideas and thoughts. And
was it scary?
No, because I had no option. Like, I'm relatively okay being by myself.
Just see, that's the difference. I think most people are not like you, though.
So it was potentially, I'm trying to think back, potentially scary, but not really.
Yeah.
But it was more, I think the scariest bit is when you're just sitting there with your own self and your thoughts, and you have to reflect on yourself and where you're at and what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent. Because it's easy to distract yourself when you're around other people and you have lots of inputs going on, because that gives us an excuse not to actually reflect and look at what might be the true reasons why we're feeling a certain way, or we're not doing a certain thing, or we're not achieving our goals, or we're striving for goals that we don't even really align with anymore. So I think you're right. Step number one is giving yourself permission.
Yeah.
Making sure that people, your loved ones, give you permission. Because I think it's very hard to get into a really nice space if you're feeling guilty that I pretty much had to escape the house to do this. You're not going to enjoy this process. And then getting comfortable. Just being with your thoughts, a journal, whatever it is, your headphones.
Well, you know, what's funny is we're gravitating towards the how again. We keep going to the how.
Always going to go to the how.
Yeah, but me too. I gravitated towards there too.
Yeah.
But I think before we try to move to the how again,
we'll go back to the
why, right?
Just keep correcting. Recalibrating.
But this is recalibrating a conversation.
Recalibrating.
But this is recalibrating a conversation. So if you think about it, in what just happened within a 10-minute conversation, we're already off track, right?
Of course we are.
And imagine if you don't do this for your life.
Yeah.
That was a 10-minute conversation.
So easy to
Your life is a 365-day year for 2021 right now. And, you know, we're already in February. So what that just means is that it's so easy to get off course. And if you don't chart a course, then you kind of fall victim to that quote where Zig Ziglar says, and this is almost to the why again, is that, you know, do you want to be a wandering generality or a meaningful specific?
Powerful.
And I think when you don't recalibrate often, you tend to become that wandering generality. I'm just doing the things day by day. Another reason why that I think I just want to clarify here as well is that inspiration. You know, before I was talking to Ali about, we're just going through our goals and looking at what our goals were and sharing goals with each other, our top 5 goals. And then you said, oh, when I look through this again, I feel so pumped.
Yeah.
I feel so excited. And to me, excitement, inspiration, and motivation comes from the clarity you get when you go away and you recalibrate.
Sure.
Whereas if you ask people the question, what do you want to accomplish this year? I think it's it's easy to say, pay down the house, exercise, eat better, sleep better. I get it. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately. But when you don't recalibrate, those are the only ones you think about. But there are deeper hidden things that we all want that if you don't sit still, and you won't think of it.
And we did it as well. Remember when we had our docs in front of our faces?
Yeah.
How we felt so clear. We had clarity and we had alignment. Then we went in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, so what was the top 5 again? And then you're like, oh, I need it in front of me.
I need to get my doc in front of me.
So we are like goldfish.
Yeah.
Where
we are.
Where even the things that we've spent so much time sculpting this picture and getting our clarity and alignment.
Yeah.
But even we need the reminders constantly of what those things are.
Well, because while your brain is an impressive CPU,
it's really not.
It's not at the same time. And what we're talking about when we're talking about the dock.
5110.
Yeah, or 3210?
That was one with
was
Snake.
It 3210? Yeah, that was one with Snake. 3 and the 7 by pressing the buttons to go around the corners. but I think the dock that we're talking about, by the way, just to give people context, is Ali's come up with a great way to be able to map out, in a way, the life you want to live. We kind of call it lifestyle design. And it's a great doc in that when we're unclear, we look at that doc. It has our values on there. It has the key goals and outcomes we want to achieve. It has how we're going to achieve them. And it's basically who we are in a document. Yep. And just like Ali said, the moment we stopped looking at it, we got into the car and we started to talk about, hey, so what are your kind of top 5 things you want to achieve? We're like, whoa, I need to look at that doc again. Because again, I think life is complex. And if you try to approach life, which is innately complex, in a simple way, I don't think you're going to achieve the things you want to achieve. So again, it's clarity. It's going to give you a massive amount of motivation and inspiration. Yep. It helps you feel more calm. Yep. You feel less anxiety because you know what you need to do.
Well, you had a great word. It makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
When I'm overwhelmed and I know I have that doc, it gives me a great sense of comfort that I know who I am. I know what I want to do. Yep. I know what my values are. Whereas before that, it was kind of like, I think I know what my values are. I think I know what all my goals are.
And I think the other big one is alignment. The big thing when I speak to people about this stuff, there's 2 things so many people want. They want clarity on where to focus their time, their energy, the resources, what their goals are. And then they want alignment. Yeah. And to me, alignment means it's aligned with what's important to them and why it's important to them. And I think when you see people in a very nice sort of state where they're feeling calm and comfortable, I'm a big believer that that's based around those 2 things, clarity and alignment. It's the 80-20 rule potentially as an operating system of living what I feel is a really enjoyable life, because you have these menu items, and so much of what we're doing is sculpting, right? Because I love your satellite analogy at the start of this, where even if you do this really well, and we've been doing it, I think, relatively well for the last few years, still get off track a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
And it's just like working out. You have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's not a set and forget type of process where you do it once and then it's sorted.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. And that's the beautiful thing, because I wish that I could now say, even after teaching people how to do this, that I execute it perfectly, but I don't. It would be a blatant lie.
You do a pretty good damn job though.
But still,
you're pretty good at it. Yeah.
But also set pretty high expectations on it now. So sometimes that can be a detriment, but it does for when I look back at my life 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where I felt super lost, even though on paper things looked like they were pretty good. And I know you were the same.
Yeah.
And this has just given us, at the very least, just a greater understanding of who we are and why we do things that we do.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, here's the story, right? In 2019, I was at, I would say, the peak of my career in the US. I mean, as a speaker and as a trainer and as a coach, I was traveling all over the US, working with so many amazing companies. And at the peak of it all, I was so depressed. I felt so down. And I remember, you know, talking to you, and then you flew to New York and spent like a week with me to help me get kind of clear again. And what we did was this process again. And the reason I'd felt that at the peak of it all was because I didn't recalibrate. I'd gone again for so long with the goals that I'd set 2-3 years ago and never took the time to recalibrate and align those goals with who I had become in those 2 to 3 years. You know, it's one of the funny things where at the time when I started my journey in the US, I was a huge fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. And like what he does is great. But to me, when I was, you know, the 2017 version of Vinh was basically trying to be Gary Vaynerchuk. But in the process of 2017 to 2019, I changed and become somebody else. But I was still chasing the Gary V imitation version over here, that goal. So I was flying everywhere. I was working everywhere. I was on stage every week. But man, that's not what the 2019 version of Vinh wanted. Yeah. So it was amazing how being out of alignment, even when I was successful, that success caused misery.
Yeah. And I remember when we did that exercise, there was 2 parts to it, because one of it was really locking in the things that were good, because so much of what you built in that 3-year period was amazing.
Yeah.
Right. But what you also didn't have, I felt, was context. You lost the why, and that had to be unlocked first around, why am I still doing this? And then who's it benefiting? What's it for? What do I now want to do at this level? Like what's the next 3 years look like? And that's the beautiful part of this process, is that it's relative to that period of time that you're currently at. And you could do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, every 3 years, and it's always going to be different. There'll always be an optimization, a change will happen, because things just don't stay the same.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, and you talk about this when you're teaching communication, it's like breaking your own mold of who you think you are as a person. Like we were speaking about this last night.
We caught it yesterday. We were saying shedding an old skin.
It's
right?
shedding your skin and transforming. Like we were actually chatting about how different we were when we were 14 or 15. And when people see us nowadays, they just don't really recognize the same people. Yeah. And I remember I used to speak to my wife about this, and it would be like, well, what's the real you? And and that was a really big question, because she was so content and has been comfortable with who she is for such a long time. I was super envious of that. I'm like, you just know who you are. And yeah, you've grown, you've changed, you've evolved, but you've always been so solid in what your values are and what you're about. Whereas the way that I grew up, the value set that I had when I was 10, 11, 12 was never going to serve me. So I had to really change it. So I'm like the complete opposite, where I'll always want to keep redesigning these value sets and trying different things and living all the different gamuts of life that's available. And to me, it's nearly a badge of honor when someone's like, oh, you've changed. Whereas for a lot of people, it can be scary. It's like, oh man, you've changed, bro. Like, and it's like, no. I'm like, thank you. That was the goal. I was hoping.
But isn't the goal in life to continually evolve?
Maybe.
I mean, how can we? I think we can be certain of who we are in a period, but then we all change.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know anyone that has stayed completely the same.
No one stays.
No one does.
Nothing stays stagnant.
No. Sure. But here's the thing that stays stagnant. The actions they take every year are the same, but the person at the core has changed.
Yeah.
So the reason people become unhappy over time is because they don't align the actions with the new core.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's the thing. I mean, if you ask me 5 years ago, my value was work ethic and just working really hard.
Yeah.
Pulling the more hours I do, the more proud I am as an entrepreneur. Yeah. But if you ask me now, no way is that a value of mine right now.
Yeah.
Right now is the the number of memorable moments with my family, the number of moments that really make me feel nourished, like what we're doing right now. But can you see, again, just highlighting the danger that if you don't do this, you've completely changed as a person.
Yep.
Like the you now wants to go to France, but you're on your way to South Africa because that's where you wanted to go when you're 19. And if you don't recalibrate, you'll end up in South Africa. Whereas where you wanted to go was France or vice versa, whatever, right? It's just, so to me, there are so many reasons there already why people need to recalibrate.
One of the things that was just coming to my mind then is even different stages in life. Like you spoke about it then, like what it's like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we all follow a trajectory. You know, as you're different when you're in your teens, as you're going through school, then you go maybe to uni or you get your first job. So then you need to recalibrate at that point. Then you might find your partner. Then you need to recalibrate. Could be your first situation. You might move out of home. You're in a different environment. Recalibrate. You might then get married or decide that you're going to be in a long-term relationship. Recalibrate.
Yeah, you got to.
You have kids potentially, or you get a dog or a
massive
parent,
recalibrate when kids come along.
Recalibrate because now you're responsible for something else. Start getting older. It's like, oh, well, I can't be as risky as I was now. I need to start worrying about my superannuation, my life insurance. Then you get even older again. It's like, I've been doing this career for 20 years. I need to change it up a little bit. I need to sharpen my skills. So this recalibration, it's like chapters in a book or scenes in a movie where, like we were talking about it before, like how cool is it going to be in years to come when we see what did our doc look like in 2019, 2020, 2016, 2030.
Yeah.
And then it's like a time capsule going back to this is what we were thinking, this is who we were. And then it evolves, and it's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, and I think that's why we do it. We do it because we want more clarity. We do it because we want to align our actions with who we currently are, not who we once were. And we do it because without it, we can't be high performers. We can't be people who are high achievers. We just can't. I mean, I think it's impossible. Yep. And even if you do, and you are a high achiever, if you don't have clarity in what your values are and where you want to go, you'll just end up in the wrong destination.
Yep.
Or even if you end up in the right destination at times, without that clarity, you won't even know you have arrived.
Yeah. And you're talking about high performance and success.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important component of this. And another reason why I wanted to develop this process is probably 5-6 years ago, I really started researching people that I thought were successful. And then you'd dig into their bios, you'd have a conversation with them and you'd look at it. And I'd say the majority of people, they had regrets, even though they were conventionally the most successful people that have ever lived or in their fields. And it started shocking me because when you're a normal person and you're on that journey, what are you doing? You're looking at that person on Instagram or the Gary V's or whoever it is, and you want to be them. And I think deep down we want to be them because we believe that we'll be happier if we get a taste of the life that they're living.
Yeah.
But then you dig deeper and then you look at it and it's like, well, they're stressed or they're regretting not spending enough time with their families or they're weighed down by the entity and the brand or whatever it is that they've created. And I started looking at that. So I'm like, well, wow, I'm about to spend 5 years trying to climb this mountain of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the top of that mountain and then hate my life from it. And I think and the only way that I could figure that out is I need to develop a strategy that makes it more holistic so that I know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I don't invest 5 years off my prime that could have been spent with my family and doing that. And is there a way to do all of it and do it so it's enjoyable? Like we speak about this as well, the journey, because we've been fortunate where I think we've been able to achieve a lot of our big goals. You know, I'm not saying that we're the most successful people in the world, but we have had a taste of achieving things that had maybe relatively lower odds. And when we speak about those goals, what do we say? It's like, it was amazing for a few hours.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great.
Brilliant for
it was
all
great
3
for
hours. Yeah.
It was great and then you learn like things about gratitude and appreciation, obviously, and all of those bits and pieces. Well, but the cool thing is how we did it. and the journey along the way.
And that's what we're doing on these trips is we're mapping out the journey and taking less focus on just the outcome. Whereas you think about it, at the beginning of the year, what do we all kind of fall into the trap of doing is that, hey, let's write down all our goals. And then all we are is we're outcome focused. We're not journey focused. So, you know, during this time, it's spending time mapping out, well, what's the journey look like to get to where you want to go? And how do you make that journey as aligned as possible? And in the process of making the journey aligned with your values as possible, you're actually making it more enjoyable.
Yep.
And on that note as well, doing this process with you actually saved me from massive success and unhappiness. Because I was on the path of becoming, like, my keynote speaking career in the US, you know, won't be modest for a second. It was actually, it was going incredible.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it was happening.
You're being modest. You were one of the top 10 speakers, arguably, in the States, in the world. So we'll put that out there.
Yeah, let's just, sure. Yeah. Okay. I feel very uncomfortable when you say that, but thanks.
But it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. But but here's the thing, right? Here's what was really painful to realize in the process that we went through is that I was already doing about 80 events a year at the time. And each event you do, you're 2 days away from your family. So I was 160 days, 180 days away from my family a year, which was the root of cause of my unhappiness. And if I wanted to become like some of the other speakers I knew that were even, double my success, I knew a speaker over there. He was doing 160 to 180 events, basically meant that he was on the road 300 plus days a year, making a lot of money. But if I did that, my marriage wouldn't have survived. I probably wouldn't have survived. And I would have, even if I hit the revenue goals or whatever, I would have been so unhappy. So that recalibrate saved me. You know what I mean? It's like not even the France or South Africa where you're going analogy. I was about to hit the iceberg that the Titanic hit. And if I didn't course correct fast enough, I would have hit an iceberg. Because I was hitting so many rocks already on the way. And I think a lot of the times when you don't take the time to readjust and to really sit with yourself or with someone else that you trust, if you don't do that and take the time out for clarity, this is why there are people, I feel, and I was one of them, where I go, why is life getting harder and harder? Why does it feel like more and more of a grind every week? Why does every year that passes me by, I feel like I'm becoming more and more exhausted? Well, it's because you're not feeding your values. You're not feeding the buckets that matter to you. You're not, that was the crazy thing. Because here's the thing, I'll say one more thing before, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too. And it's that I had many buckets that I need to fill. The only bucket I was filling that you know about was wealth creation. I had family as a bucket, being a good husband as a bucket, being a good father as a bucket. I didn't even think about those for a period of time. I focused too much on wealth creation.
Yeah. And just one of the things that sticks out when I look back at that experience, and it's amazing, like one of the things that I was thinking about is just how far you've gotten and the changes that you made. I know obviously some of it was pandemic related, but one of the things that I think really separated you in this process was your ability to really strip yourself down and be open and honest and true to yourself. And that sometimes can be daunting.
That's hard.
With this process is that it forces you to really look at yourself. And that can make a lot of people very uncomfortable.
With no bullshit too.
With no bullshit.
Because we bullshit ourselves all the time. Yeah. And some of the voices in our head, it's not actually your voice.
Yeah. And I remember when we were going through our process, because this process, in a way it was created because I was doing it organically, but I never really viewed it as a thing until we did it. Yeah. Because it was nearly custom built for that environment. And then we're like, holy crap, then we tried it with a few other people and it was crazy. But I remember you being a student and just when we would go through it, because you're one of the most emotionally intelligent, self-aware people that I would know. And sometimes we'd sit there and you'd say something and then we'd pause and we'd look at each other. It's like, is that real? Yeah. Or is that bullshit? And we'd have that little conversation. But we were like fortunate that we were in a really comfortable environment. Yeah. and you were open to digging through that to find your truth. And I think that's what whenever I speak to people, they're like, I want clarity and I want alignment. And I'm like, the number one thing is, well, you're going to have to be open to being true to yourself too then, if you want those two things. Because there's superficial levels of clarity and alignment, which are like little dopamine hits that you get from looking at Instagram. And then there's the core stuff that I think we're all searching for. And I'm the same sometimes. Like I'll think, I was telling you this, like I now feel like I have to always perform this well. So if I'm actually feeling a little bit average, I feel like I'm nearly not allowed to do it because who am I to go and show people how to do this process? But then, I'm getting ego identified to being able to do this thing. So now I have to really question myself as well and be like, all right, is this true? Is this real? And it is though amazing, I think. And even us just doing this over the last 2 days, like you just feel like that weight's gone and it's fluid. And
well, it's about reflecting. A big part of this process is about reflecting on who I've been and then also getting more clarity on who I am currently and then who I want to be. It's kind of, that's what's so beautiful about it is our conversations over the last 2 days went from who were we, who are we, and we're about to have that conversation tonight is who do we want to become? And I think when you don't ask yourself these questions, again, you fall victim to generality. You become a wandering generality. It's why I love that quote so much. It's funny, we're here in front of the ocean, right? Yep. It's, have you got your sails set or are you just drifting?
It's crashing into the rocks.
Yeah. Or worse, are you just drifting? I mean, I'm currently watching the Vikings, the final season. And one of the brothers, Uber, he's on Uber, I should say. Uber Lothblock. He's on a ship right now and they're just wandering at sea because they don't know where to go because in their mind there's a promised land that they want to get to, but they don't know how to get there. And it's so excruciating watching the pain they're going through of not having enough water, not having enough food. But I look at that and I go, that's where I once was. I was once, I don't know why I was doing the things I was doing, but I was just doing them. So I think, again, it's so important to have that clarity. I can't speak enough about the importance. When's the last time you took time for yourself to ask yourself, who was I, who am I, and who do I want to be? And be so truthful to yourself and realize when that answer you just gave is an answer that your mum would like you to say.
Yeah.
And when that answer is actually what you want to say. And then being willing to sit in silence and not know the answer. And be okay with that so that you can gradually move towards finding the answer. Because what we do is, I think the reason we say what mum would say or what dad would say or what our wives would say or what our husbands would say or whatever is because we're uncomfortable with the silence. So when you ask people, hey, what is your purpose? They might say, to be a good father, to be a good husband. Sometimes we grasp onto those immediate answers because we're afraid to sit in the silence of the unknown.
Yep. And the interesting thing with this process, I'm yet to come across anyone who hasn't known the answer.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
It hasn't happened yet.
But it's so deeply buried. It's so deeply buried. It's so deeply buried. But isn't that cool though?
Yeah.
The inspiring thing about that is that means everyone, because we've done this with quite a lot of people now, the key thing that is with this is that no matter how lost you currently feel, the answer is actually inside you.
Yeah. And
that's kind of cool.
And it's a physical
that's inspiring
reaction when you see them finally hit the truth.
Yeah.
And it's usually based around either a conversation they need to have, one significant action that needs to be taken, one decision that needs to be decided on. Like the changes, like to recalibrate. People will sit there at the start of this and we do a little questionnaire where it's like, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how clear and aligned do you feel? It's always like a 2 or a 3. And it's amazing how quickly you can turn that into an 8 or a 9. But that person at that moment at the start's feeling so lost.
Yeah. There's no way I'm going to be able to do
never
this.
Going to find. It's like I love the castaway type of analogy of being in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
But then the island there or the boat that's going to save you. Yeah. It's just going to be right there to save you. Yeah. And you've gone from nearly feeling like you're going to die to, oh wow, I'm drinking water, I'm eating seafood. Like
it's all good. There's lobster, baby, with garlic butter and a bit of lemon.
And it's an amazing process with that when you actually find that, oh wow, it's 2 to 3 moves that are so within reach. Because here's the thing with this process. Most of the time, where we're at, we've made a lot of really good decisions to get there. It's very rare, and I'm yet to see it, where I've sat there and I'm like, wow, you really messed this up over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah, and now it's going to take us a year to rebuild you to get you where you need to go. It's usually like, when
that's a really interesting insight.
It's like, wow, well, 80%'s pretty good.
Yeah.
But you've got a little 20 here that feels like it's 90% bad. And if you just change 2 or 3 things, how do you think you'll feel?
Yeah.
Well, I love this one that we were talking about yesterday. We were talking about the perfect days.
Okay. Give context for that.
This is so good around perfect days, because we all sit there and we think that, we need to upgrade our house. We need to spend 4 months in Europe on a yacht or whatever. Like, we've got these, I need to be at 11% body fat to feel good about myself. Like
that would be awful. I'd never want to be at 11% body fat.
We have these pictures in our head of like how dramatic the move has to be for us to be happy. And then we were doing a cool little exercise. We were just sitting there and we're like, well, what does your perfect day look like? Because we were talking about some pretty big things that we thought we needed for a really ideal, exciting day. And then we both did it. And from memory, I think mine was like meditate, play a bit of golf, spend some time with people, go out and have a nice meal with and some really good conversation. Yours was?
Yeah, mine was, I said I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So that is something that can't immediately happen. That's a 5-year goal. Yeah, but that was the only 5-year goal.
Yeah.
But then I said, I'd love in the morning to be able to take the kids to school.
Yeah.
Then be able to work on a passion with my wife. Yeah. Something like cooking together, doing a class would be amazing. And this was you asking me the question, where are you in 5 years? And I'm like, in 5 years, I'll be doing a great cooking class with my wife.
Well, I asked you, what does a perfect day look like in 5 years?
In 5 years, yeah. And I said, so it's that. Then, then my wife has time to go do her own thing. I do my own thing. I'm like learning. I'm contributing to society, to my community. And then after that, I pick up the kids. I play with the kids, have fun with the kids. And before I finished it, I was like, wait, I can do this next week minus the 3 kids. Unless I'm really magic and I somehow freaking have triplets, or twins next. But that's the thing, is that the process of recalibration, each time we've done it, has made us realize that we're 80% of the way there. However, this is the thing I find really interesting, is that 80% of the way there always feels like I'm only 10% of the way there. Because we haven't taken time to reflect and to truly appreciate where we currently are.
Yep.
And you don't see reality for reality. You see it through this lens. So the Recalibrate process helps clean your lens, help you truly see where you are. And it's never as bad as you think, but it's also never as good as you think. Yeah. And then it helps you realize that, oh, right, there are these 3 key moves that can get me from 80% to 94%.
Yeah.
And that's what this process allows you to do, is it helps the dust settle and the mud settle in the water so you can see with clarity. And this is what you do so bloody well, is you've helped me identify what those 3 to 4 key moves are each time we've done this. That the moment I do them, dude, in 2019, felt like shit. 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 emotionally, happiness-wise. Now when I do it with you, dude, I'm like at an 8.5. I love my life now. But the key move of moving home, you helped me work that key move out before COVID happened. The key move of, again, building a business that is not based around me traveling all the time. These key moves, it's amazing that it was 2 to 3 things. It was amazing that it wasn't, hey, Vin, here's a list of 74 things if you complete in 2021.
496 actions you have to do by Monday.
But it's never that. No. It's never that. It's always at most 5 actions you can take.
Oh,
yeah. A couple of difficult conversations that I had to have as well. But far out.
There's always a bit of friction. If you're going to make a change.
Oh, there was a lot of friction.
There's trade-offs.
Yeah,
there are trade-offs. And a lot of people also, if you're looking at, oh, wow, I need to change it, it's also getting comfortable not only with being truthful to yourself, but understanding that if you make a change, there will be some effort, some discomfort to make a positive change. But once you know that this change is the benefits of this change are so significant, most people will make that adjustment. But I think a lot of us, we don't have the context around how important that action or change is, and we don't understand why we're doing it, so we never make the move because it's easier just to stay where we're at.
Well, because if the lens is blurry, you don't see with clarity how important those moves are.
Yeah. And there's something about conventional advice as well, because when we were doing what we were doing, conventional advice or expectation would have said, what the hell are you doing thinking about making this move?
Well, you know, to give people context as well, you've spent the last 3 to 4 years building your career to where it is. Why the hell would you move?
Why would you look at changing it?
Well, it's because I was so out of alignment with my values. I'm moving into an era of fatherhood, wanting more children. It doesn't make sense for my success to be paired with days away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, if my kids were 18 and 19 who really don't think dad is cool anymore, that's cool. I'll travel and become a full-time speaker and do many gigs a year. Yeah. You raise yourselves as teenagers, right? Because from what I hear, teenagers are gross. Because I was one.
That's when you'll restart that career again.
Yeah, that's when I was like, I'm going to recalibrate when you turn 13.
That's right, yeah, 200 days away.
Yeah. But it's that alignment.
Yep.
That decision was right for me.
Yep.
Whereas I think a lot of the times when we don't take the time to do this, we adopt the conventional wisdom. You know, suck it up. Yeah. Hustle.
Well, there's also the concept of accounting for things that aren't just finances. So accounting, because one of the big things that we did with that one was we found this metric, which was a key metric that was hidden away, which was time away from family.
Yeah.
And
I never thought of it like that.
Because
I thought of it as gigs.
Well, it was gigs. It was salary per keynote. It was number of clients, you know, because they're the conventional metrics.
Yeah.
Like you're in your business environment, you're not getting rewarded on times away or days away from your family. Yeah. And then,
but it took us a day or so while we were recalibrating to realize that the ultimate, what a gig meant was 2 days away.
Yeah. And that's what people also find. Yeah. Is that there's usually 1 or 2 really key metrics that are important in their life. And they're not related. Sometimes they're related to finances, but we automatically go to finances and material things because it's really easy to measure. Mm-hmm. But for different people, it'll be different things. But finding that 1, maybe 2, 3 really key metrics.
Yeah. And then measuring those.
And also seeing where they're currently at and where we want them to be. Super critical part of the process.
And again, when you get this clarity, you're not panicking through life. You're not anxiously going through life, waking up every morning feeling, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I had so many mornings like that when I didn't have that clarity. Whereas the moment you have clarity, you have there's a sense of peace. And you said that the moment you saw me again this time round, right? Because we hadn't seen each other for a year. The last time we did this was in Southern California. Yeah. And when we did this in like, I had this panickiness about me. There was this anxiety that was under the surface. And again, it's the clearer you start to get, the more you start to do this, the more you start to fine tune the acts you take in life with your values.
For sure. Like this is like a top up. Whereas last time it was a design.
Yeah.
It felt very different.
Yeah.
Which shows that, because I was actually interested to see that. Like, would it be a full redesign again?
Yeah.
Whereas this is like marginal optimizations.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It gets easier as you do this. Year 1 will be the most challenging year. The first time you go away for 7 days or you go away for a week and you try to do this process, it's going to be frightening. It's going to be really frightening.
Sure.
I mean, I made the decision to completely change the way I approach my career from this. Like, again, I think, like, let's not understate the importance of facing truths. Yep. The first time you do this, you may have to make some very difficult decisions, but these are the very decisions that will be the ones that save you from the spiral of unhappiness, the spiral of depression.
And a big part of what we, I think, do with this process as well, it's not about just denouncing all the things that are difficult in your life. It's also like, if you think about even go back to your business context without going into too much details, we figured out strategies so that not only could you tick your goal with time home with family, we figured out strategies so you could also still grow your business.
Yeah.
And it just provides that. It's finding a few other moves as well to mitigate some of the potential risks.
Well, it's during this time we're very creative.
Yeah.
Because creativity requires constraints. But when you don't know what the constraints are, you can't be creative in a new way. Because if I just kept going and I just thought to myself, I shouldn't constrain the number of days away. I should just keep being away. Then we never get creative. We never truly come up with new ideas. We just keep doing what we've always done. But once I had that constraint, we got really creative. Yeah. So, I think that's very powerful. Yeah. So I think, if people are listening to this and they think to themselves, well, what does this process look like? It's funny because we're starting this season with this episode because we've been doing it for many years now. One of the differences with this experience that we're doing is we're actually documenting the entire process. We spent a few hours this morning just mapping out what exactly are we doing? And we've touched on a few of those topics. I think it's a huge part of it is about reflection. Give yourself time to reflect. Because when you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, it's hard to work out how do I get from where I am to where I want to be. So it all starts with where were you? Yep. So it's past, present, and then future. What's something else you can share about the process?
Something else we can share. We've covered a fair bit of it. I think I love the action planning. For me,
that's the most exciting part.
That's probably my favorite bit.
Yeah.
If I look at this whole process, I think there's something beautiful in looking in the past and the gratitude that comes from going through the memorable moments exercise and what we do in terms of really appreciating all the things that are good and finding out where we're at. But once that's there, and then you've got a solid understanding of your values and who you are. I love the oak concept, which is outcomes, actions, and knowledge. So, and then just for context, how that works is, say if you've got 3 to 5 goals, we then break that down into what are the 3 to 5 actions, knowledge, habits, whatever it is that we need to then start working on or scheduling in or making as a task list so we can then achieve those goals. And that to me is now the meats on the bones, right? Because when we were talking about it before, all right, say if we do this 3-4 days with people, what would be the number one thing that I would personally be focusing on is, do we get the person to the point where they've got their 2 or 3 actions, their outcomes, and then they feel really comfortable with the plan that they then have to execute on. So that's my big one. I know for you, you also love the exploration process. You love the review process.
Well, I love the part of the process where the first time we did it, now I kind of know what my values are. Yeah. But the first time we did it, what was so special about it was identifying what truly are your values and what are the values you think you should have versus what are the values you're currently acting out and living out, and which values were just ones you wanted to wear like a badge of honor because you were just virtue signaling to the world that I'm a really good person. Yeah. Look, but you never actually live out that value. Yeah. It's just BS. Yeah. Right. So that was a really cool process, was just going, who am I? Who the hell am I? And I think a lot of people, including again me, every time I say that, I have to say, because I was this person. Well, I thought I knew who I was, but I didn't. I truly didn't, because how much time have I spent in my whole life getting to know myself? Think about it as the person listening right now. How much time have you spent getting to know who you are? Or are you spending the majority of your time just going through the motions and serving everyone else around you? Yep. But who are you? Yeah. What are your values? Okay, I get it. You know where your family is going because you're a good family person. You know where your organization is going because you're a good team player. But where are you going? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered for? What's your impact going to be in this world? We don't ponder enough. And there's There's a great author, Earl Nightingale. Yeah, this guy was like, he wrote books in the early 1900s where he says that, or the mid 1900s, where he says, if you want to bake blueberry muffins, then go get the recipe on how to bake blueberry muffins. And the thing is, most people want to bake blueberry muffins, but rarely do any of them take the time to go and find the recipe. Meaning, if you ask people, how many of you want to make more money? How many of you want to have more impact? Everyone's hand goes up. How many of you want to be a better family? Every hand will go up. But how many of you have a recipe, meaning oak? How many of you have the outcome you want, the actions you're going to take, and the knowledge required
to achieve that thing?
How many people have done that? With complete clarity, along with that, accountability as well, right? So to me, it's again, you deserve this time. And if you're not going to be selfish to do this, you will not be able to serve those around you to the best of your ability.
Yep. And I'm not going to butcher it because I know you've got the sharpening the saw analogy, but just explain that and how important it is.
Yeah. Well, it's the analogy of, there's a story where there were two people. There were an a tree chopping competition, and there was a real big buff guy. Let's just call him Vinh. And
here we go.
Vinh was chopping away at this tree, and there's two guys. There was a really small, scrawny guy named Ali, right? And Vinh was chopping away at the axe, and they're both going at it. But then about 30 minutes into this axe chopping competition, like, the first one to chop down the tree wins. About 30 minutes into the kind of chopping competition, Ali walks away. And the big buff Vinh Giang with notably incredibly chiseled jaw and amazing abs was thinking to himself,
wrists were hurting.
Your wrists were hurting.
This is not enjoyable at all.
It's not an enjoyable story.
I'll just wait till he chops down the tree and then I'll try to see if he'll sell me some wood.
And then, so Vinh was thinking to himself, why the hell is this guy taking a break? He's not even taking this competition seriously. What an idiot. So, Vinh just keeps chopping away at this tree. And then about a few minutes later, Ali comes back and he starts chopping the tree. And then again, the same thing happens in 20 minutes. Ali just off again, obviously wrists hurting, ankles kind of weak.
Bored.
No, not bored, just weak. Yeah. And he just left again. And then again, this guy is just Vin's thinking to himself, this is stupid. I'm going to win. And the same thing keeps happening over and over. And long and the short of it is, Ali's tree falls first. And Vin's thinking to himself, how the hell did this happen? I'm stronger than him. I'm bigger than him. I didn't take breaks. And then he asks Ali, how the hell did you beat me? And Ali turns to him and says, my chicken wings, arms had nothing to do with it. That's for sure. But I wasn't taking breaks. I was sharpening my axe. And it just goes to show that how many of us in life right now are just chopping away at the tasks that we have to do with an axe that is completely blunt, an axe that is the equivalent to a butter knife. And we're just doing it day in, day out. And when we feel bad that we're not being a better dad or a better husband or a better person, we hit the tree harder with an axe that's getting more blunt. How many of us take the time to sharpen this blade? Right? It's not about brute strength or excessive amounts of inspiration. It's about gaining clarity. That's the blade being sharpened. When you are clearer, you take precise actions that lead you to incredible outcomes. That's the Vinh and Ali axe story.
I love that.
Yeah.
But
so you won in the end. I was cool at the beginning, but then you were ultimately cool. You see how that kind of worked?
The chick's still
but I was still ripped in this story.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Like mine still wasn't that impressive.
It wasn't that impressive. No, I mean, you may have
like
won
you were sweating.
You may have won the competition, but ultimately you're still losing life.
Just for the record, so everyone knows.
Just for the record, after that, Vinh married an incredibly beautiful woman, had very strong buff children.
That's right.
And Ali gave birth to very little children.
Yeah. Incredibly intelligent.
Incredibly intelligent, though, yeah.
Used to bully Vin's children.
Yeah, just psychologically broke them down. And then ultimately, we could do a sequel for this story. Part 2.
We're getting well off track.
Yeah, well off track.
But the other thing that I love there in that story
is
sometimes in the unconventional, there's a hack. You know, and we love hacks.
Yeah, we do love hacks.
We love distilling things. What we're doing right now, what we were saying, it's like so many people won't do this, but this is a hack, I feel.
It is.
It's got and hacks are just things that seem unconventional, but have such a high impact. Yeah. It's for people that, are wondering what a hack is, but I think in life there's probably some hacks that are worth pursuing, even though that they're unconventional.
And you know what is crazy? And I think as we kind of wrap this episode up as well, I feel that even if you go through this process and you find one move, it's worth it.
It's one move.
And even if you go through this process and you find 0 moves, it's worth it. Yep. Because you're beginning the process of getting to know who the bloody hell are you. That's what you're doing. And to me, that's worth it even without the moves.
Well, the equivalent is like throwing darts blindfolded.
Yeah.
That's the image that comes to mind. There's no point. Unless you're really, really good at throwing darts.
Again, it's going back to Zig Ziglar's thing. How do you hit a target you don't even have?
Fair enough. And especially nowadays, I think in the world we live in, because there's so much opportunity to compare and contrast and measure ourselves against other people and the things that we don't have. I think this is the toolkit to live in the modern world, because you can only ever be your own measuring stick. And you can't measure against yourself if you haven't explored who you really are. That's the real core part of this. If you're post survival and you're going, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you're looking at actualization, I think it's one of the biggest causes even in our era. Like, what's the number one thing? It's mental health. It's people battling things like anxiety. Even more so now with the pandemic. Right? Like, that was the other thing with this. We were talking about it. We had pretty complex things that we had to navigate. Yeah. But this gave us a toolkit. Like, now, I always wanted to know, does this only work? Because people would always ask me that. They're like, oh, well, you're in a privileged position where you can implement this. Like, even Chantel, my wife, used to ask me this. And I was super careful when I'd speak about this, and I wouldn't really share it or what I was doing until I had a bit more proof that, okay, well, it actually works for everyone. Or most people. I won't say everyone. I haven't done it with everyone. It's a big call. But I was actually worried about that. It's like, oh, crap. Well, maybe, does it only work with like someone like Vin, who's already at this level and ready for it? Or will it mess someone up that there? And then we looked at it through the pandemic, and then it held up. And I was like, wow.
And again, you've done this with people at varying levels of success.
Varying levels. Well, not even just success, it's varying levels of uncertainty and dealing with a variety of different challenges. Yeah. Right? Like, you were dealing with career challenges. Some people are dealing with relationship challenges.
But I had those as well.
Some people are dealing with just starting a new journey, maybe losing a job, realizing that they're in a terrible, partnership or whatever it is. It feels like there's ways that you can use it in all circumstances. Yep.
So I feel like, again, this is something that we have been exploring now for the last... What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at we're like talking about this and we don't even have anything where we can like direct anyone to.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, and if you want to know anything about this, we apologize that there is nothing really.
Because it's confusing as hell.
It's like, it feels like we've like advertised something that isn't real. So
well, that's the thing. That's the reason why we decided to... I mean, look at this, right? The fact that this podcast is not a book review is as a result of this process of us gaining more clarity as to what we want to do with this podcast and this medium, right? Yeah. So this very action of us doing it is a part of this recalibrate process. But more than this very action of us having this conversation right now about, we don't even know what we're doing, is us also giving ourselves the freedom during the recalibrate process to explore new pathways. Whereas I think so often we get so caught up with doing the same thing we've always been doing. How easy would it have been for us? We actually had both read recently, again, the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because we said that's what we were going to do a podcast on.
Yeah.
But a huge part of the process of recalibration is also being kind to yourself and giving yourself permission to completely change path if that's what you discover is what you want to do.
That.
And that's what we've just done.
Yeah.
So to me, there's no problem with not having a place for people to go because we are recalibrating. That's the part of the process. And our intention is for the future to create a retreat where we can take a small group of people and because we're going to recalibrate every year anyway for the rest of our lives. And we're planning one for the closest people, and this is us putting it out into the universe, so we have to do it.
Now we're accountable.
Is us taking the people we love and care about the most in our lives, the people who've had so much impact for us, taking them away and doing this with them. And then after that, taking people who want to do this. Because every time I even hint at this, Ali, people immediately ask, oh, is this something you do? Is this and every single time that I'm like, no, we don't.
It's our secret.
Yeah, it's our secret. But also,
good luck.
But also secretly in my heart, it was, I don't know what the hell I'm doing there yet.
Yeah. And for
it's
me,
a messy process.
I was scared. I was like, does this have to be a sacred thing? I don't want to turn it into something. But you helped me show that there's so much potential value in it.
Well, because it's life-changing. It's life-changing because without this, I would have become a wandering generality. Even as a high performer, I wouldn't have sharpened that axe. Now, to close out the metaphor and potentially to close out this episode as well, recalibrate is where you get to sharpen your axe, gain clarity, and at the same time, imagine this with that metaphor now. Imagine you had a really sharp axe. So you had Ali's brilliance in that story of sharpening the axe, but you also had Vin's brute strength with a sharp axe.
Combine them.
Imagine that. Like to me, that is the ultimate high performer now moving forward. Whatever that means. It doesn't mean you have to be the best of the best in your industry, but imagine you were able to get your axe as sharp as you possibly can, and you were able to swing it with all your might, combining the forces of those two strengths of good work ethic, just clear and smart as hell.
And I think there's such a danger in people thinking that success means like success in business or career and all that. Even when we're looking at it, what are we talking about? We're like talking about success as a parent.
Yeah, last night. Our whole conversation last night was how we can be better dads.
But it's the same concept of sharpening the axe and going in that.
And then key moves you can make as a dad to take down that tree and take that little award of being the best dad I've been so far in this life.
And I love what you said there.
Yeah.
It's not the best dad in the world.
No.
It's not the best dad in my friendship group.
No.
It's the best dad that I've been so far in my life.
That's
like,
right.
I love that component because, again, it's like Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Those that play Mario Kart. What we're doing here is we're chasing our own ghost.
Yeah.
That we want to be.
Ah, I remember that.
Yeah, well,
that is a great analogy.
We're not competing against Bowser and Toad and everyone else.
No, it's just you.
Yeah.
But it's what I tell a lot of my students as well, is that, as a communicator, I never compare myself to any of you because I'm always going to be better. No, I don't say that. That's a monster. The truth I don't say that. Yeah. No, but it's also true. But no, and I joke about it with them in class because I'm saying to them, I never compare myself to the top speakers in the world. Yep. I never compare myself to Anthony Robbins. I never compare myself to Mel Robbins. I never compare myself to Gary Vaynerchuk. Heck, I compare myself to my last performance. And it's easy to say that now because I can do that, whereas before I did compare myself. But that's a game you can't win. So look, I hope that as you all listen to this, I hope that people take the time to recalibrate. With or without us at this point, because there's nothing for us to point them to. Yep. But I hope they will take the time for themselves and communicate with your partner the importance of this. Your partner needs this.
If you've got a partner.
Yeah, if you've got a partner. Yeah, we're talking about it in our context. We've got wives and I'm afraid of mine. And that's why I'm always, is it okay? So I think if you've got a partner, or even if you don't, give yourself permission.
In general, the people around you who you think that this might impact.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, and there is a component here around using the word selfishness, which is very dangerous.
Yeah, I did say that at the start.
Because this isn't a selfish process.
No.
I believe it's not.
I don't think so.
Because I think if you're going to be the best version for the people around you, for your employees, for your colleagues, for your teammates, whatever it is, your friends, your kids.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe it's very difficult to be the best version of that role if you haven't sharpened your own saw and you're not in that space. Yeah, we were talking about this in the context of like golf. Like, golf is a great analogy for this. Is I'm yet to see anyone who's played an amazing round of golf when they've come to the golf course in a bad place, in a place where they're worried about time, they've had a fight, they're rushing off to a meeting, they don't know what time it's going to be. Like, it just never happens. The best rounds of golf I've ever seen anyone play is when they're relaxed, they're swinging freely, they're feeling confident, they're feeling good within themselves. Like, I also don't think as a parent, I don't think I've ever been a good parent when my mind's in 50 different places.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking of everything else. Like, so that's why this is important.
Yeah. And to add to that example, I know I've tried to end this podcast 3 times, but you just haven't let me end it. No. And now I'm not going to end it because I have another thought.
Why would we end it?
Why would we end it? It's our show. There's no, what the hell? We could do whatever we want. Yeah. But the thing is, when I come back from these trips, like my wife, she loves me more. Because when I am clear on how I can be a better husband, and I align that with what she wants as well, like our love is intensified. Whereas when I'm just, this is what I do.
You're not coming back like a jerk.
No.
And then you're like, hey guys, I'm back. I've been to the day spa and now can you just fix me a meal and I'm just going to go to sleep for like 20 minutes. And I don't know. You're not doing that, are you? You're coming back and you're coming back with intention to actually improve.
And I share that. Yeah. I share it. Yeah. And I express my gratitude. Yeah. I've even expressed my gratitude to my wife multiple times on this trip to say, I feel so lucky to have someone like you, Pei Wen, that allows me to have the space to learn how to be a better man. Thank you. You are so selfless in giving me this time because when I come back, I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be a better dad. I'm going to be a better contributor to society. And I think when I have the most friction in my relationship is when I'm using a blunt axe. I'll give you an example of using a blunt axe in the relationship. Oh, I've worked too long this week. I haven't done anything for the family. You know what? All good. I'm going to book the most expensive restaurant and buy the most expensive piece of jewelry and buy the most expensive flowers because I've forgotten that your favorite flowers were peonies because I'm so busy all the time, but now I know what it is because I've written it down in my doc. But clarity, right?
Good.
And I overcompensate with things that money can buy because I'm just not clear on what the moves are. That's a blunt swing of the axe. A blunt swing of the axe for me is overcompensating with things that money can buy. A sharp swing of the axe, bro, is when I get her favorite flowers from her favorite florist with her favorite cake. That costs a lot less than an expensive restaurant with expensive jewelry. So that's that. Yeah. So look, for the sake of your relationship, for the sake of your family, your colleagues, your team, your community, and for the sake of your own happiness and your level of impact, take the time to recalibrate with yourself, to reconnect with yourself, and to realign yourself.
Mic drop.
Mm-hmm. End of episode 1. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And make sure you subscribe to the Vinh and Ali podcast on Spotify, on iTunes. Leave a review.
Yep.
Google
Play.
Give it however many stars you think it deserves.
Yeah.
5. Yep. That's it. Thanks for joining us. Bye. That was wicked.
That was a sweet episode.
That was a fucking sick episode. We should just keep this in there as well. Just keep going.
That was a sweet episode.
Just a pat on myself.
Yeah, they just see us celebrating the episode.
Yeah. That's fucking awesome. You know what's